Well, this is our second business development forum that we've held since the COVID restrictions came into place. And it's good in being able to welcome you all personally, of course. And hopefully this is a sign that we might be moving back to some sort of new normality, at least I'm hoping so. Like everybody else, we're mindful that COVID's not gone past us yet, and that we need to be very, very careful so that we don't suffer the sort of relapse that's happened, well, initially here in Australia, but certainly around other parts of Europe and elsewhere. So with the support of you and your cooperation and assistance, we're finding a way to do these forums in a COVID-safe format. Last week we had the opportunity to host the Prime Minister in conjunction with Westtrack at Tomago, and that went very, very well, where he delivered a speech on some energy policy, and I'm sure you've all seen the details of that, or hopefully you have in the news, and if you haven't, I can show you personally on my scrapbook. No, only joking. I've got a couple of those in the PM. But that went very, very, very well, so it was a great opportunity. And we also had the pleasure of partnering with the City of Newcastle at a Hunter CEO Connect, a Hunter First event in their new, very impressive, I might say, premises in Newcastle West, and Jeremy and the Lord Mayor looked after us well on that occasion, and really is a place where, as someone working for a local government, a place you'd want to be and spend some time in. It's a fantastic facility, and really I encourage you to get over there and have a look what they've done to the ground floor, especially in the new library facility that is in place there. We're also very grateful that our corporate partners who support makes these events possible, and the major sponsor of today's event, as I said, is the Newcastle Permanent, who have been very generous with the support that they've extended to the Chamber over the COVID period, and which made it possible for us to continue to bring in the quality of service and the quality of events that we want to do with you tonight, right through to encouraging and attracting speakers of the calibre that we've been able to do. They've transferred their support to our live events, which is fantastic, and coming on board as a series sponsor for this has been very encouraging for us. And I'd like you all now, please give a warm welcome to James Cudnall, who's the Newcastle Permanent's Chief Customer and Product Officer, who's going to say a few words. Please welcome James.
Thank you very much, Bob, and good morning everybody. I'm conscious we've got fabulous breakfast, wonderful guest speakers, and I'm the bloke from the bank, so I'll keep this super quick. But look, we're really proud to be increasing our support, and it's a wonderful organisation and a wonderful group of people we have here together today. Thank you very much, Bob. Thank you to our hosts, directors, and guests. If I think about the Hunter, and this is a discussion about Hunter businesses, the Hunter economy, Hunter jobs. Obviously, Newcastle Permanent for 117 years has been of the Hunter, in the Hunter, but we are owned by the Hunter. We're 100% customer owned, so our prosperity, our success, our endurance is absolutely attributable to, in and of the Hunter. So we are here for our customers in the area. If I think about going into the COVID period where we may have a handful of customers every week reaching out for hardship support, over a 4-week period in April, that's 3,000. And we are here for every one of those customers, and we are here for our customers in the challenging times like that, and as we come through into the better times. Which brings me on to a very shameless plug. I am here with our Head of Home Ownership, Simon Deitches. Simon, give the crowd a wave. We're here to support the Hunter, we're here to support you, so anybody interested in having a conversation about how we can help you, we are here. We help everyone from young to old, homeowners, savers, investors. So anything you would like to discuss, we're here for you. Thank you very much, and let's get on with the show. Thanks, Bob.
There's never been a better time to switch to a great low rate with Newcastle Permanent, or to have a bit of extra money in your bank account. That's why if you switch your home loan, we'll give you $2,000 cash back. That's your money to spend on whatever you want. So come and see how much you could save on your home loan. Our local call centres and branches are ready to help. Newcastle Permanent. Here for you and here for good.
Fantastic. Thank you, James, and thanks again to the Permanent, Newcastle Perm, who are very much an iconic institution, much like the Chamber, I think. Yes. I don't say so myself. Okay, your breakfast is going to come out shortly, I'm sure. We are going to feed you. But while we're doing that, I'm going to welcome up and introduce our guest speakers. So there's been a lot of interest in today's event, like there was last time. And once again, we had a wait list, and I'm sorry if anyone knows people that we couldn't fit in, but with the COVID safety precautions that are in place, we're at our capacity. So thanks very much for coming along, and thanks very much for registering early. But obviously there's a lot of interest in this, not because of the subject and topic matter, and the interest of both Crystalbrook and Iris Capital is very important to the tourism and visitor economy sector for our region. And two similar but different perspectives from our guest speakers today. There is no doubt that the projects both of these companies have been undertaking have city-shaping potential and stand to provide a significant stimulus to the city and the region. So our two guests today are firstly Geoff York, who's the interim CEO of the Crystalbrook Collection, which is redeveloping the iconic old council roundhouse building just outside here to the city's what will be our first five-star hotel. And secondly, Peter Harvey, who will be known to many of you, I'm sure, who's operations manager of Iris Capital, which is involved in a string of tourism, hotel and lifestyle developments across the region, including the East End revitalisation, which incorporates the former David Jones building. I'd like to invite both Geoff and Peter up to the stage now. We'll go with short presentations from both of them, and then we'll do a Q&A. So if you can have questions ready, and I think for the Q&A we will have a roving mic, but it will have to be held, so don't try and grab it off the person that's taking it, and so think about questions while you're having your breakfast, and then come and have a seat, gents. So firstly I'm going to welcome back Geoff from Crystalbrook to give us a bit of an overview of what they're up to and from their perspective, and then Pete will follow, and then we'll have a Q&A session, as I said to follow. So please join me in welcoming Geoff.
Great to be here this morning with you. I'm normally based in Sydney, came up here yesterday, and really, as I said, delighted to share with you a little bit of a story about us, Crystalbrook. Most people don't know us yet. They do in some locations where we operate, but I'll give you a bit of our story and also what's happening across the road. You've seen it, you all know the building from its previous life. And I think we're just really looking to reinvigorate and rejuvenate that building and reanimate it as a hospitality and hotel venue. So starting off, just a bit about us, Crystalbrook. GA Group Australia, is our sort of parent company. We're funded by one person who, up until now we have about close to $700–800 million of his money here. He'd never been to Australia, never really been to this part of the world, had nothing to do with hotels or hospitality. He's a self-made billionaire. His business really grew out of motor vehicles. The largest importer and exporter of motor vehicles across the Middle East and Africa. And one day, several years ago, started thinking about diversifying the industry that he was in, the countries that he operated in, and I can't exactly recall how, but those thoughts went from Europe to the United Kingdom, went cold because of Brexit at the time, somehow came to Australia, to him trying to come out here to have a look. Couldn't get a visa. Now he is a resident of Dubai. He's got visas to most other countries in the world, to the US, but we wouldn't give him one. So we said, well, I can't get it, I'm not going to invest my money out there. Fair enough. About 6 months later, and I'm giving you the short version of this, he was able to get a visa, came out, loved it, as all of us do, love the country. 3 months after that, he's got a private audience with Malcolm Turnbull, the then Prime Minister of Australia, for an hour or so talking about what he wanted to do here, and the rest of it is, as we know it, things started. We've started in Cairns. We always said that was our initial beachhead, but that was only the beginning, and we've gone from there. So we're a sustainable operator of hotels in the upmarket hotel space. I suppose if you tried to put us into a nutshell, we are a developer, owner and operator of our own hotels under our brand, Crystalbrook Hotels. On the screen is some images of some of our, from several of our other hotels. The top right-hand side is Bailey, our second hotel in Cairns. The one on the left is a bar out of the first hotel called Riley. The picture sort of in the middle, the smaller one, is a rooftop bar on top of one of the Cairns hotels called Rocco. And the other one is a guest room shot from one of the Cairns hotels. So yes, all our hotels have names. Up in Cairns, Riley, Bailey, Flynn. We have a hotel called Albion, or Little Albion in Sydney. Obviously we have Kingsley here. There's a whole story behind it, but we were looking for ways to separate ourselves as a small independent hotel company, which is what we are. How do we punch above our weight? And one of those was our naming convention. Other ways we've done, and on that left-hand side, right-hand side, you probably may not be able to read it from there, but it's sort of heading is what do we value? And, first one is personality. None of our hotels are cookie cutter. Kingsley here in Newcastle is different to any of our other hotels, and something we really seek out is to have a playful sense of hospitality in the hotels. None of our hotels are cookie cutter, unlike other standardised hotel brands. This concept that we've coined about responsible luxury, it's part of our sustainability story. We've tried to eliminate the amount of plastic that we use through hotels, through the hospitality industry in general, and particularly through our hotels. Connectivity, I'll really focus a large focus on IT and the in-room experience around the hotel. And then mindfully safe. That's a more recent initiative of ours. As we're all looking at, in a COVID world, how do we ensure the experience for our customers, no matter what business we're in, that we remove that concern from consumers. And for us, we obviously ramped up our whole cleaning regimes and protocols across our hotels, but we also added to that with an awareness that mental illness is a real issue, and anxiety, it's just been elevated through these times. And so we have a program called Mindfully Safe, and it talks to some of the experiences in our hotels to try and lessen that. We make donations to an organisation called Beyond Blue, which is a Melbourne-based mental wellness organisation. Here's a list of our restaurants as they stand, hotels. We've got a day spa brand we developed called Elamade. So really out of the hotels I mentioned, we have several in Cairns. Byron in Byron Bay is our hotel. We purchased that middle of last year. I've got to say, if we probably had double the amount of rooms there, we could sell them 3 times over. People are just flocking there at the moment. That's our brag page awards that we've won so far in our 3 years of life. I won't dwell on that. And of course, here, Kingsley. I know, as I said earlier, you can all see it. I hope at one stage we may be able to do something with the chamber and look at running some families, small groups through the inside. There's a bit of a sneak peek prior to us opening the hotel. That's something we've done in our other hotels, which we've built several of them or we've taken them over, but we've always looked to how to engage with the local community and local business community. And one great way is to come in and have a look before we open to the public. what I've got now are just a couple of images, and these are obviously renders that we've taken, that we've had prepared of Kingsley. This is this is lobby space. Obviously, we've worked within the envelope of the building. It was just a unique opportunity for a conversion to a hotel. I know when we purchased the building under the tender process, there was, I believe, people interested to convert it to apartments. It was just a great opportunity. The footplate, the floor heights, the central core with the lifts just lent itself to doing something that had an accommodation focus. And there's not always that opportunity with commercial office buildings, but this one was just great. This is a bottom left-hand image is a picture of some meeting space that we're going to have on the ground floor. The hotel does not have extensive conference space. There's a boardroom, smaller meeting room, probably up to 30 or 40 people, depending on the configuration and what exactly the event is. We would have liked to have put in more, but once again, there were some limitations working within the building itself. That top main image is a cafe that's going to be on the ground floor that will spill out to an outdoor terrace. One of the guest rooms, it's always pretty hard to photograph a guest room. There's obviously a lot more. There's a bathroom and various things, but there's a theme behind the interior design concept. We have our own branding points and touches that we put through the guest room experience. We have one of the rooms actually at our builder's car park. One of the things you do when building hotels is you do a concept room or a mock-up room, and that's normally a freestanding piece that you put together. Sometimes they are done in car parks or warehouses or whatever, but it's actually a guest room, and we have an actual guest room down in Cawes car park. You might have seen this odd-shaped thing standing in the car park that's got, it sort of looks like a little piece of this building beside us, what it sort of is supposed to be. And it's actually a working and functional guest room down there, which we do, we actually go through the machinations of, is this going to work, what's the customer experience going to be? All the thoughts that we've had in our interior designer, do they actually work in practice? Sometimes they don't, but you pick it up at this prototype stage. Rooftop, obviously that's the latest thing that's gone on, the big glass dome on top of the building. It's going to have a bar. As you open those lift doors and you enter on that new rooftop level, you're going to have, that's the view with the bar. More seating than what's showing there, more space. A little bit more of those rooftop areas. Actually, that's it. Around further, so you enter on that rooftop level, bar, seating, and you sort of continue the journey around to your right. It opens up to a big open restaurant and kitchen that will progressively take shape over the next few months up there. So that's, in a nutshell, our story. As I said, we're really excited to be here, very genuinely excited. We love Newcastle. And we're looking to bring in the best of Newcastle in little touch points through the hotel experience to the customers that will be joining us at that hotel. When we open, we think April, early May next year. So, thank you.
Thanks, Geoff. Very impressive, and I really look forward. Thank you very much for the offer to come through in small groups. The trouble is with this lot, they want to get stuck in the bar on the top floor, and we won't get them out of it. No, I'm joking. We'll have a breakfast function there, so we can't do that. And the naming convention, I'm sure there's probably some suggestions from the floor. We can couch and breakfast in question time if you're looking for other suggestions. The Bob comes to mind, but I don't know that would stick very well. Anyway, enough of that. I'm now going to welcome Peter Harvey up to tell us a little about what Morris has been up to and some of the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead for their organisation. Please welcome Peter.
Thanks, Bob. Good morning, and thanks for having me. certainly my renders are not as good as Geoff's with the product that they're putting together just down the road. But what I've done is give a little snapshot of Iris investment in the Hunter. Sam Arnu is our owner, family-owned business. Sam's investment in the Hunter across these assets is in excess of $100 million, not including what's going on at the East End, and in particular the Q2 development. So I thought I'd just give you a visual of what the portfolio looks like in the Hunter. And you wonder why I go bald and grey in the same year. We have a 5-state housing estate up at Greta called Wyndham Ridge. We're 4 stages in and just selling stage 5. During the COVID period with the government grants, stage 3, 4 went exceptionally well, and a lot of market movement up in the Hunter with land sales. Sweetwater Estate is a single vineyard property. Sam's private residence when he's in the region. Produces some wonderful Shiraz and award-winning wines. An exceptional asset to our portfolio. Hungerford Hill Winery up in Pecolbin, an icon with the architecture of that building, and I'll talk a little bit later about some plans we have for that asset moving forward quite soon. Of course, Muse Restaurant is a tenant of that property, well-known Hatted restaurant, and a great bloke, Troy Rhodes Brown. Most of you will know this property as the old Wyndham Estate. This is a estate that's the oldest producing vineyard in Australia. The grapes were brought in by James Busby. George Wyndham and Margaret Wyndham are buried on the site. There's a graveyard, and Dalwood House is a property which is now managed by the National Trust. So Dalwood is at the back of Brankston, and it's an exceptional property. Some of you would remember the old Seasons plate that Brian McWilliam used to run up at Wyndham. That's the same property, just with the name back in its heritage. Recently, Iris acquired the old Shaft Tavern at the back of Bellamore Bar. We spent 9 months on a renovation there, traded for 2 weeks, and then shut down with COVID. So it still hasn't reached the heights of where it was pre-COVID, but certainly trade's getting back there. But very disappointing worldwide with what happened. But there's a lot of blood, sweat and tears went into that renovation to trade for 2 weeks and then have to shut it. The Sydney Junction Hotel, based out at Hamilton, is another asset. Pedon's Hotel is our first acquisition in the Hunter, apart from the vineyards. We acquired that in August 2018, and that was the first of 6 venues. So within about a period of 7 months, Iris had acquired 6 hotels in the region. This is the Gunya Hotel at Belmont. It's our second floor function room with lake views. Amazing venue and a great asset to the portfolio on the coast of Lake Macquarie. The Argenton Hotel was in the middle of renovations during our acquisition, and we fast-tracked that settlement to finish the product that it is today. And of course, this is of big interest. This is a aerial shot of what's happening in the East End at the moment. The exciting part of that was topped out a few weeks ago with stage 1. the space is really coming alive. It's amazing to walk through when you actually get to see what Victoria Way and the precinct is going to look like. The scaffolding, some of you may have seen the scaffolding starting to come down on Hunter Street yesterday. So the PC date for that is still looking like Q1 of next year. We have the white sheet down that bottom right corner, which is what we know as the QT Hotel. In any given day in the buildings A, B, C and D, there could be 350 to 400 trades on site. Behind the scaffolding you wouldn't know that, but it's a hive of activity in there at the moment, and very exciting that each day changes dramatically. Just a little bit of a snapshot around Iris and COVID. We have a staff of around 200 in Hunter, all of which, well, except for 5, we traded a bottle shop, were stood down. Some very difficult conversations during that period, no doubt most of you have had those as well. As I said, Elmore Vale traded for 2 weeks and we had to shut for 9. So it's much easier to turn a venue off than it is to turn it back on. Our supply chain functions during the turn-on period were stretched. We were given a week's notice to open. So it was a very difficult period. What we did do, however, was grab the bull by the horns and invest nearly $3 million in renovations during that shutdown period. So I was one of the 200 that was stood down for a period of 8 weeks. I had a week longer than most of my team. However, when I got the phone call from Sam saying we're just engaged contractors to do 3 renovations, I think I was sitting in my garage as a statistic of 1 in 5 who was drinking more. I thought he was telling me a fib, but needless to say, we're on the back end of that now. We've completed Edgeworth Tavern, massive renovation out there. We've completed a sweep through of Argenton as a secondary renovation, and we've just made investment into 15 accommodation rooms at the Sydney Junction Hotel. So there's a little bit happening during that period, and we're trading through now. I will touch on it with Bob and Geoff a bit later, but compliance is costly. There's some significant cost to business in the hospitality space at the moment. We have restricted numbers. We have COVID marshals at a raw cost. They do nothing other than sign people in. It's a true cost, $1,400 per venue per week. So it's not easy. You have to make commercial decisions around it. And COVID safety plans. Our licensees, it changes daily. Police are in venue every day. Police have different mindsets around the interpretation of public health orders. We had Highway Patrol Police in venue last week telling us we need 3 COVID marshals. So it's very difficult to get one message. We're trying to facilitate one message through a portfolio of venues across various local area commands, and those local area commands may have different interpretations. So certainly a difficult period, but we just need to roll on and get on with it. So I look forward to some Q&A with Bob and any questions moving forward.
Technology is a wonderful thing. Thanks, Pete. There's some real challenges and opportunities there by the sound of things, and I bet no one in the room realised that the portfolio that Iris had is so extensive and well ingrained into our urban area. So it's getting a very good insight as to what could happen. Geoff, perhaps if I could just turn to you first. Given COVID and the business planning that you would have done before you made the commitment to Newcastle, I'm sure a lot of that's gone out the window because feasibilities sometimes are only as good as the day that they're written. One of the things here is ambitions for this region is to improve our international travel. I'm just interested to know what component of that, when you were looking at the opportunity here, was the hotel going to be supported by that component and have elements of your business plan around how it will operate once it does open change as a consequence?
Yeah, look, I think, like for all of us, it's fair to say that COVID has just thrown all our operating business plans out the door. We actually had a recent discussion about what we're going to do business planning for next year, and have decided just to probably stall that for the moment. It's too hard, there are too many unknowns, there's too many things out of all our control. So we've just postponed that, but we probably will get to a point where we'll get each of our businesses to put 3 scenarios together based on a sort of low, medium, high demand scenarios is what could happen. In our case, if state borders reopen, what will that look like? What impact might that have for our particular businesses? When international borders reopen, and it depends by country in terms of international visitation. We're keen to see UK, parts of Europe, the US reopen to North America, reopen to Australia. That's the key. Let alone New Zealand, Australia's the largest provider of international tourists, and there's talk of that. We've all probably seen it. Maybe March next year, depending on what happens. New Zealand, a travel bubble may happen. It's a difficult world that we operate within, and we think we've got to the new norm, and I start to get excited when one of our hotels hits 50% occupancy, and I think back, 6 months ago we would have been saying to them, what's gone wrong? Now we say, well done. So it's a completely different world. In terms of Newcastle, because we're developing this hotel, probably in terms of our capital planning, not much has really impacted. Working with Core, Newcastle builders, work has gone on the site. There was a lot of, obviously, COVID protocols had to come into play, but I don't think we've had a day of disruption due to COVID. They've done a great job of that. I think what we're hoping to bring to Newcastle, like we've done in Cairns, which is where we started, was just bring a whole new standard of accommodation. In Cairns, when our first hotel there, Riley, opened, which now 18 months ago, first 5-star hotel to open in Cairns in 20 years. Now, Newcastle is going to be the first 5-star hotel, but probably the first upmarket full-service hotel to open in probably, I might be wrong, 12 to 15 years. And what we've found in Cairns, I think we'll find here, it just reinvigorates the destination, having a new hotel. Hotels, philosophically, really the successful ones become part of the fabric of the city in which they exist. So they don't just exist and float on the surface, they've got feelers out there engaged in, from business communities to social groups to welfare groups. As a hotel, how can you support that community? Internationally, I think Hunter here has obviously always been Newcastle. It is part of a gateway to the Hunter Valley, the wine growing area. We just think our hotel and working with tourism bodies here in particular is an opportunity to just cause people to have a re-look at Newcastle with this great, sexy new hotel that's going to be here. I think there's only upside for all of us in this.
Well, that's great. I'm encouraged that, obviously, as you've alluded to, some of the other markets around Australia which have collapsed as a consequence of just reliant on one particular facet, whereas Newcastle has always done well with the domestic market, so hopefully that continues. Pete, Geoff's alluded to some of those challenges around what's happened with the short-termism in terms of strategic planning, and you referred to compliance costs as one of the challenges. What are some of the other things that you're facing? Is supply chain issues becoming a thing in terms of what you did before we've got to change, and the response from staff and not being able to look very far ahead? Are they significant things that you're having to deal with on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think obviously I did mention the cost of compliance, and there seems to be a willingness to target our industry. Specifically, I mean, Sydney Junction Hotel was a venue that was identified as having a COVID case in venue for a couple of hours on a Saturday night, and trade didn't decline, trade fell off a cliff, and you know, there was a number of other venues in that same circumstance that there was no follow-up community transmission, you know, and trade is still not back. You know, there were businesses that shut for 2 weeks. So I think from a compliance perspective, we have COVID safety plans. We have people who are now trained in that, and we just need to get on with it. And, you know, that's how it is. You don't have a choice. But what we would like to see is the administrators and the police just respond to that appropriately and to say, oh, guys, you know, let's get on with it, rather than be the fun police.
Yeah, I think we're finding that in business too. We do get stuff back from businesses that they find that it's very easy to go off track to find two sets of facts in terms of, well, what am I supposed to do and how am I supposed to do it, and that has certainly an issue that's emerged. So are you finding that diversity in your business though is something that has helped, like with your pubs for example? You know, some pubs, others do restaurant trade, and you know, and your vineyard venues. Is that diversity helping the business to stay afloat?
I'm not sure that it's helping the business stay afloat. I think that destination tourism up at the Hunter is you know, really pumping at the moment. We believe that destination tourism in the Hunter Valley will continue for some time. I talked earlier about Hungerford Hill, the architecture up there. Sam is going to invest significantly in a modernisation of that space to cope with the incoming tourism regionally. So that's with architect EJE at the moment with master planning, and that won't be delayed. We'll just move forward quickly with that. So I think the diversity of the portfolio understands that, you know, some of our properties have wedding events, large-scale events such as Dalwood. I mean, that property's shut. We have a wedding up there on the Friday of October, long weekend, but, you know, it hasn't opened for some time. So yeah, there are challenges, but, you know, you need to be smarter, and we need to evolve under a situation that we're all faced with.
Yeah, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, just a reminder, I think if you've got any questions, we'll get a roving mic going shortly, so we'll have that opportunity. So any questions or comments would be truly welcome. Geoff, you've alluded to the diversity you've got around the country, also than just the Hunter. You've noted that the Byron Bay property sounds like it's going extremely well. Is that universal, and what are some of those challenges that you have without planes flying, tourists travelling? But you know, then now talking at least about an opportunity where all the people in Australia hopefully start spending their hard-earned and saved holiday accounts on domestic tourism.
Yeah, I think we're all spending it either on tourism or at Harvey Norman's store somewhere. His business has gone through the roof. We actually bought Byron from the Harvey Norman organisation. Surprisingly, they owned it. Not really well known. It was the one hospitality asset within this massive public company of white goods stores. And there's a whole backstory to that I won't hit with now. You look at Byron, it's this regional tourism phenomenon. Now, it's just going gangbusters all through regional New South Wales, as it is in, well, actually mainly New South Wales, but no doubt in other states, excluding Victoria. It's also occurring. Given the size of our investments in Queensland, we're heavily engaged with the Queensland government, the tourism bodies there, and we have fought them all the way on these border closures, as has the tourism industry in general. They are wrecking Queensland's tourism industry, particularly in far north Queensland, but they are immune to it. It's all become politicised. There's a state election up there on October 31st. There's a concern that by the Premier, if the borders were to reopen, maybe she might lose votes. It's all about votes. They've done polling in marginal seats and on this issue of borders shut or open, and their decision is all around that. There is absolutely no recognition of what it's doing to industry at all. And I don't think they're going to open. Now, there was you might have seen last night, they're going to reopen the borders, Queensland borders, within I can't recall the radius of within New South Wales, but you could certainly from Queensland get to Ballina, Byron, and back without having to quarantine. And that happens from the 1st of October. So yeah, good step, but we really need those borders. We need the planes flying. I think Australians spent $63 billion on international and domestic travel last year. So there's no doubt some of it's ending up, other than with Harvey Norman, in travel. Yeah. One of the challenges though, and also the opportunity I think we're going to bring to Newcastle though, is people. And the amount of people we're going to employ and local people we're going to employ. We are actually bringing the general manager of the hotel in from one of our other properties, in interstate hotels. He will be starting in November here, and maybe one or two others we don't know yet, but let's say 85 to 90% of the people we employ are going to be Novocastrians. They're going to be from here or within surrounding regions, and I think that's what we bring, is also employment opportunity and development opportunity. We'll work with the TAFE here and the hospitality school here and provide work experience and job placements and chefs apprenticeships and all that sort of thing. So. And the flip side of that, though, is if I look at our other locations where we're having difficulty, as bit by bit business is starting to regrow in Queensland, even though it's only intrastate travel for now, is we're getting slightly busier people. Talking specifically about Cairns, people have left town. There's a lot of that overseas backpacker, we call them, who work in the industry up there, be it on cruise ships, tourist attractions, barrier reef cruises or hotels, that sort of left town because they couldn't get JobKeeper, couldn't get Job Seeker, and they've gone down south looking for work, and it's going to be a real issue. Getting people in frontline positions in our industry, and I don't think it's just Cairns.
I think we're relatively blessed here in the Hunter with unfortunately a large pool of youth unemployment at the moment, but that itself is an opportunity, but also, as you allude to, the TAFE facilities that we have here are second to none around the state, so that's fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions from the floor? Otherwise I'll put on one to, yes? We'll just get a microphone to you, if that's all right. So just identify yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, and then fire your questions, so if that's all right. And Amy will hold the microphone.
Thanks, gentlemen. Ian Jones from Merchant Business Brokers here in town. I was just wondering, what with assets and investments in other regions around Australia, what appeals most to you about investing in the Newcastle and the Hunter region, and how is this area different to other areas of doing business? Is it, good and bad?
I'll just start. We look all the time for development opportunities. We have an investor in our business who wants to continue to grow despite the challenging times. We are actually tonight announcing a hotel we've just quietly purchased off the market in Brisbane. I'll share with you, you won't tell anyone else until you see it. It's called the Fantuso. It's about a year old. It was, well, still is, but won't be, part of the Art Series group of hotels. So and that was about a 4-month process of us going through, analysing Brisbane again, looking at market demand, the same things that we did in Newcastle. What's the future growth? When do we think that city is going to come out of the sort of COVID downturn? Brisbane is going to be one of the earliest cities, probably by late 21. In terms of hotel business numbers, demand will be almost back to 2019 levels. Where we have a similar view about Newcastle and hospitality here in the hotel scene. So one of the things we looked at was that when is the market going to be coming back? Obviously when we bought the building we had no idea about COVID and what it might be, but we looked at the hotels here, how they were currently trading, and we took a view that this Newcastle needed another hotel, or two, or three, no doubt, there'll be others. But there was an opportunity there. Looked at the cost of building, what it might cost us to buy through tender the building beside us, a whole range of factors. But we just have a very positive view of Newcastle. And I would say I've been with the group now for 3.5 years. Prior to that, with another hotel group, we were looking at Newcastle, just couldn't find the site. So Newcastle has been on a number of hospitality hotel operators' radars for quite some time.
We need more sites. You want to add anything to that, Peter?
Only that Iris is opportunistic, and you can see from the strength of the portfolio in the Hunter, and that's not including stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 and stage 4 of East End residential. There's also stage 1 and stage 2 retail tenancies. So I think the strength of the opportunity lies with Iris Investment.
Any other questions from over to Diane?
Good morning. My name is Diane Hamer. I'm the CEO from Council Personnel, and my question is for Geoff. So Geoff, we're a not-for-profit organisation that works with about 2,000 people with disability, health conditions and injuries. One of my participants was talking to me about the difficulty she has sourcing good quality accommodation that meets her needs. The design and feel of the Kingsley and your facilities looks absolutely amazing, and I personally look forward to being able to access the facilities. I'm wondering if you've been able to address the challenge of how you can offer a similar quality facility that meets the needs of people with disability without it feeling like a hospital bathroom.
Look, it's not easy, there's no doubt, but there are, to start with, there are very explicit guidelines through the Disability Act. I'm not sure that's a correct name for it, that as hotels you have to follow. There's a ratio of rooms with accessible facilities that you need to have, and they really are about the bathroom more than anything. That sort of meets you. I mean, there's slightly wider doors, you've got to have a ramp, there's levels, you can't have step-ups within a guest room, but I think it's, other than the bathroom, I don't think you'll notice a difference between the bedroom and what we call an accessible room in our other rooms. And in the bathroom, it's the grab rail, it's the fact that there's no we don't have baths in any of the rooms, but there's obviously a wheelchair accessible space to get into a shower area, and that's in grab rails around the loo and that sort of thing. We just can't get away from it, unfortunately. But I think other than that bathroom space and those couple of items, everything else looks exactly the same as every other room in the hotel. So yeah, I think that's the best I can answer. Yeah.
And I think that's a wider conversation, Diane. My experience with disability as well, that it shouldn't be singled out to Geoff. It should be a wider conversation across the portfolio of products.
We've got time for a couple more questions if there's any. Otherwise,
Bob, I've got one for Peter. Peter, there's a lot of interest in the East End building now that people can see it taking shape. Could you just give us a bit of an overview of what's the mix of commercial, tourism, residential, and indeed public space in that area?
Sure. I think part of the development, and Jeremy will be well aware of this, is public art space. That's going to be an amazing space for a thoroughfare through Victoria Way and the public surrounds. The retail tenancies, we're working quite closely with Colliers locally on filling those spaces. Interestingly enough, the inquiry during this period has been exponential. So, take comfort in knowing that what's happening in business at the moment, there's a lot of activity and there's a lot of inquiry about retail space in that in East End stage 1, such that we're even considering talking to tenancies around stage 2 already. So, watch this space in relation to that. Stage 2, it's the hole's there, ready to go. Stage 1, topped out, scaffolding's starting to come down, and QT is in a shroud of a white sheet, and that's exciting for later on next year, 2021. And I think also you'll start seeing a lot of digital presence and social media around what the East End is going to look like. So we're excited to sort of start rolling that out yesterday and moving forward over October, November, December.
2021 is going to be a big year for both of you. Just so the hotel, the QT will likely open in late 2021. Yeah, fantastic. One over here, Amy, perhaps the last question. And,
That's right, I'm going to grab that thing. Question for both of you gentlemen. Fair bit of investment obviously in the city and in the Upper Hunter. How do you see your portfolio expanding, and would it include coastal area, Hunter Valley? Have you had any thoughts in that direction at all? Bruce, what's there?
G'day, Bruce. Certainly, I laugh regularly with Sam because I ask him to put the gun in the holster, and it's always loaded. Whilst there's opportunity, Portsmouth is a great opportunity for Iris in relation to a destination hotel portfolio from a venue perspective. I'm not so sure what Sam's vision is for further expansion other than that, but I certainly say that we have 2 bookends in the portfolio at the moment, one being at Cessnock, one being at Belmont. There's still 2 other bookends in both other directions, so watch this space, I guess.
never say never.
Look, I think within Newcastle proper, for us, this next door will be it. However, I would say we have a very high regard for the Hunter Valley, Vineyard, Carlton region. Would love to do something there. We have had some talks with other parties about looking at something within that area. We think that would be a great fit with a hotel here in Newcastle, something in the Vineyard area, but that's a little bit further down the track for us. More
opportunities about, and I think we should compliment both of you, because I know that both organisations do a lot to use firms here locally, and I know that a couple of firms that you're using here are actually doing work outside the region for Crystalbrook, and I know Pete's very much a fan of Hunter, so it's fantastic if we can get development and action happening and keep jobs here, which is really good. So compliment you both. That's all we've got time for in terms of that, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll please ask you to join with me in thanking our 2 guest speakers today for being with us. So please. I'll just do a bit of a wrap on a few things while they make their way back.